Booze cruise, is it? No gin and tonics, I'm afraid. So, a couple of things we'll point as we go around. There's a couple this way, and then there's a lot that way. The head of the River Club, that used to be our main engine yard, going on about 100 years ago. So that crane there, you can see on the right hand side, was the original one we used to put our sea lizards in. Unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore, just looks a bit of a trophy, but still there, it's a decoration. We used to own the vast majority of the real estate around here. So Salford, aside from being a passenger boat company, also has dealing with properties. A lot of things from the our old engine yard, our retrofitting, so we used to put all our interiors inside this island. But nowadays a lot of it's been converted into flats and all our maintenance work is done at our boat yard a bit further downriver. Our river crane that was used to fit all the interiors and saloons on the boats back when we first started building them. So they come through as empty hulls, engines get put in at the head of the river. Not a lot of this was still here, so it was a little bit easier to get through. And then they put the saloons and stuff just on this bit here, and then they'd be ready for service. Nowadays that is just a bunch of flats and out staff car parks, so slightly less impressive, but Salters being Salters, they keep a lot of things for memorabilia, and the two cranes are some of them. So our kind of main port of operations is Folly Bridge here, although we used to have offices in Reading and Windsor as well. So back when Salters started off as a company, we used to run scheduled boat services from right here all the way down to Kingston upon Thames. It'd take about 2.5 days, run twice a week, and usually you pay for your ticket, sort yourself a hotel in Reading and Windsor for each stop along the way. So you come down, drive your boat to Reading, stay overnight, have a nice dinner, go to Windsor, have another dinner, and you end up in London. Don't do that anymore because unfortunately rail travel makes the 2.5 day trip into about an hour and a half. So unfortunately it's not quite as quick anymore. But we still do scheduled services to Abingdon, which takes about 2.5 hours in school summer holidays. hours there, 2.5 hours back. We have fully stocked bars on board for our big boats. Don't do food, I'm afraid. So, off to the left-hand side here is Christchurch Meadows. So Christchurch is probably the most famous Oxford College, usually because it's been used for a lot of filming of the Harry Potter films. The main hall in Christchurch College is the main hall in Harry Potter. The only thing that's different, to be honest, is the sky doesn't have funky clouds in it and the painting is slightly different. Other than that, it's exactly the same. First ever recorded hot air balloon flight was also done in that field right there. It was nice and open, wasn't as many big tall buildings. Nice and clear, so they decided to do an actually close to it. This stretches the main bit is called the Thames. The other main river of Oxford is the Cherwell, so that enters just up here. Now the river flows in the direction we're going. You notice when you look at the entrance here, that's pointing into the stream. So when it floods, or it gets a bit rainy and the river starts to get a bit quicker, the Cherwell used to flow backwards. And that caused an enormous amount of flooding in the 1700s, when Oxford was first becoming a city. So in good old fashioned, they created a new cut to make the river flow in the right direction. Then they got all prisoners to do it, but they all went to prison. So just the other side of now, it wasn't an island, now it is an island, Boathouse Island, is a big man-made channel called the Cherwell Cut. So that caused actually quite a lot of flood prevention in order to keep the river a little bit more manageable. As you probably noticed if you ventured through the city centre, Oxford basically, it's the university and the city attached to it. There's about nearly 40 colleges and halls of residence in the university, 36 of which have college boat clubs, and the other few join on with some slightly smaller colleges called numbers. Virtually all of them have boathouses here. So Christchurch, the first one right at the end, that's the Winklemoth boathouse. So they were two American ex-Harvard alumni who also donated quite a lot of money to Christchurch College. They also got conned out on Facebook back in about 2008. Oxford won the women, Cambridge won the men. And then they gradually lease land out, build boathouses further and further up, and then when they're approved, switch over to this side. It's a slight little bit taken up by other colleges into the flat. So the oldest college in the university is 776 years old. The university itself is just over 1,000 years old. So first college is University College, with a really creative name, as you know. And they own this boathouse here. They share it with a few other colleges, but it is their boathouse. And this one here was opened in 2007. They used to have a lovely white and red wooden boathouse that was about a third of the size of this, and that also, before they moved to Wallingford, was the site of the Oxford University rowing team. When they moved down to Wallingford, University College took it over completely, and that was their boathouse. And then they thought, we're getting quite big, we're one of the larger boat clubs, we'll apply to extend it. The council said no, and a few months later the boathouse burned down. So a nice hefty insurance payout later, that big black boathouse shows it. Very coincidental.
Yeah, we know the boathouse in Wallingford.
It's a lot quieter of a stretch. It's also the longest stretch between any two locks on the Thames. Just over 6 miles. Yeah, we had multiple offices when because obviously before internet was widespread and online booking was a thing, you needed multiple offices to manage the multiple areas that you worked out of. Nowadays, you can book everything online, so we can just run everything to one office. We still have our landing stages in Henley, Reading, Windsor, Marlow, you name it, we still own them all. Nowadays we don't do many scheduled services purely because they're just not popular. We still do private parties up pretty much anywhere on the Upper Thames. I believe it's open. The way to check is if you can book online, it is definitely open. If you can't book online, it probably isn't open. Just because it is that one's very dependent on staff availability. Because there might be a private party going out of Marlow, in that case there's no dripping. You definitely won't be fighting for space because that's a massive scheme that we've got down there. Yeah, you just hop on the boat, they'll take payments as they go around. Yeah, a lot of colleges now, all the main bumps racing is over. They're now trying to get a lot of people who've seen the racing, gone, oh, that looks really good, I want to be a part of this. We're trying to get as many of them rowing before September starts. So part of the college, which is that crew there, just built out of this boathouse here, the Long Bridges. They own that, they built it about just over 25 years ago. The slight downside to it is the lowest, it's the closest to the river of all the boats. The Thames tends to flood pretty much every winter. So you'll see on the right hand side, at the bottom end of the doors, the bricks are like slightly darker. Yeah. That's where the flooding got to about a year or two ago. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, from November through to about February, yeah, the river just tends to so the way to control that flooding is through the weir system. The main ones down the Hinton Stream, which is just under these two long bridges here. Just under the downstream one is an outdoor swimming area, which you'll be able to see the little ladder that's still there. That used to be really popular, slightly less so nowadays. Some of the Thames Water decided to use the river as a little bit of a dumping ground in the winter, but nonetheless people still do swim in there quite regularly, especially during that heat wave a couple of weeks ago. With the colleges though, you get a lot of entertaining racing. So they have two main races a year, which are clubs races, where instead of racing side by side, you race one behind the other, and the aim is to basically hit the crew in front of you before the crew behind hits you. If you do that, it's called a bump, and you get to what places. You do that for 4 days. If you bump every day, you get a ceremonial wooden blade, and if you get bumped every day, you get handed a wooden spoon. The person to the right is the end of the river. Oh yeah, you do. Olympic class, £50,000 boats.
Have the door on. Yeah, dump it in the water. Yeah.
A lot of the colleges have very, very patient boatmen who are employed full time to repair all the carnage that's caused. Usually the week before bumps is when they start breaking things the most. Because they all get a little bit excited and then start to get devastated. But this bit here is the best bit to watch if you ever are down in usually week 5 of the shooting term, which is kind of the end of May. Because you get this hit, they all race down in the opposite direction to the way we're going, and there's that nice tight corner. When crews are getting like right close to each other, they're focusing about the crew in front. They forget that there's a big tree there and usually go straight into it. End of May. Yeah. A lot of people will have final exams. Usually start the same week as 8, which is always very handy. Through till usually sometimes even the week after term ends. If you ever see any walking down the city centre wearing it's called subfuss, like their gowns, white bow ties, they'll have rosettes on their blazers. If it's white, it's their first exam. If it's pink, they're in the middle of their exam. If it's red, it's their last exam. So if you see a lot of relief people or a lot of tread people with red ones, you know why. Because usually a lot of their degree is riding on that last exam. It tends to be quite a stressful day with people. Not an Oxford student, I went to Oxford Brooks just up the road, so I didn't have to try quite as hard.
They've got cruise, haven't they, for the town?
Yeah, they do. So Brooks is actually arguably the better boat club out of the ones in Oxford. They tend to be a bit of an Olympic powerhouse of producing world-class rowers. So about half the GB national team rowed at Oxford Brooks at some point. Yeah. So that boatyard that said all the hulls were built, that's just on this left-hand side here. You see our big sign in front of the door. It's nicely added this year. So all the main boats we started building them in 1901. So the Reading that was right in front of us when we pushed off, she was the first one ever built. The Coring that we worked with, yeah, was built in 1913. First sister ship, the War Ray, was built in 1912, slightly better looking than Titanic. A lot of the boats tend to be built in pairs, so Reading had a twin class on it. However, we bought it not too long ago. Oh, they're always good ones. And he decided to kick them out and give them the boathouse. Wow. He also owns a cottage on that left-hand side, so he gets to deal with the rowers all the time, and he made quite a fair bit of money off it, so I'm taking it to his work. The building just ahead is the Isis Farmhouse Pub. It's one of the last true riverside pubs in the country. So there's no road access really whatsoever. The only way you can get there is either by the river or on the towpath. So it's got a lovely beer garden, nice marquees out the front and back, and it does live music every Sunday. And it means you can't get drunk and drink driving on your way home. No drink driving laws when it comes to boats. Not unless you've got passengers. Not unless you've got passengers on board. And then you'll see two buildings just dead ahead. You'll see a little cottage, which is a lockkeeper's cottage of Iffley Lock. And you'll see the spire dead ahead, which is St Mary's Church. So that spire itself is nearly 1,000 years old. It was built in the Norman period. Lockkeeper's cottage, however, is only about 110, so not quite as old, but still been there a while. Iffley Lock is the first lock ever built on the Thames. The original lock placement was actually behind that danger sign, but that's now a weir. So she's the first and the smallest lock built on the river out 44. The first one is up at Kingtop, right at the top of the river, and the last one is Teddington, right down the road. Yeah, tidal after that. So the good thing is with these locks is it means the river became navigable. Before this, the river was only about a foot high, so we didn't really get any big boats on there. This is going back about 250 years. In the summer, it was basically a trip. Yeah. So Oxford originally got its name about 1,000 years ago from the oxygen fields on this side, fording the river to go pasture British membership houses. So nowadays, this bit of river is about 4.5, 5 feet deep at about this time of the year. So you can get most passenger vessels through. Pretty much anything that can fit in a lock can go all the way up to Oxford from out to sea. If you've got a narrow boat, you can enter the river on the Thames. You could go all the way down to Bristol, North Yorkshire, you name it, on the canal network. As long as you've got a canal boat that's under about 60 foot, you've got no issue getting pretty much anywhere on the network. From our office is 2.2 kilometres. It's just over. Not one that rounds nicely. I don't quite know why they're gardening, but
Hello.
you know you're not meant to be in the bank, right? You're not meant to be in the bank, you know, you're meant to be in the river.
Rub it in.
Yeah, not a lot of people know where we are, which is surprising. They kind of think the river, well, the city stops after the high street and don't really venture any further south. We do, yes. So we have also, we don't run them on weekends, but during the week we have an afternoon tea cruise, which usually, as long as the locks are behaving themselves, will go to Rose Island and back, which is about an hour. It's an hour and a half trip. Or we do a picnic cruise that goes an hour 50 upstream.
And that's just during the week?
During the week, yeah. Tuesday to Friday usually. We would run them on weekends, but sometimes we just don't have boat availability. Like next week, pretty much every boat we own is out on Saturdays. By the hours, yeah. Like the Echo.
Hey man, put that little thing down to your wrist. I'm filming testing stuff.
I think you mean the river, not me.
So, put the... I'm looking after my B-roll.
I've been going over here for years all day. Owned by Corpus Christi College. It was built in about 1886 by soldiers. Before we started building steamers, that was what was built. And it was actually used in the same essence as the boathouses. It just had the perk that you could move it whenever you needed to. Weren't quite as big, but you could store loads of eights on the roof. Whenever racing went on, you could sling them in the water. It had a nice social area down below, and the roof would be absolutely rammed with spectators whenever there was racing on. Represent the Oxford University in some form of varsity event, you will get a blue of some form. Some sports are definitely easy to get a blue in than others. Rowing is ironically one of the hardest ones, as only like 9 men, 9 women get it each year. Whereas in terms of rugby, it's 23. Calls, nearly running them over with our steamers because they've just tried to turn behind us right in front of our propeller, and nothing we can do when it comes to that. It's quite funny when the racing goes on with all the colleges, we get given radios to communicate with all the umpires, and I was sat in the office just minding my own business, no problem, and it goes, one of our skippers says, oh, we're just doing this, yeah, thank you very much, just a heads up, Oxford River Cruises are being stupid again. It's like, saying that, until about 20 years ago, you used to be able to travel from St John's Oxford to St John's Cambridge on land owned by one of the St John's colleges.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of land.
There's billions tied up in the university and various things. It's
Really?
ridiculous.
Yeah, Queen's College Arms was owned by Oxford.
Probably by Queen's College.
Yeah. Quite well known on the telly. Loads and loads of them.
Nearly. Oh, sorry, can I get back in
Yeah,
the break again, please?
Get out the way. Get out the way.
You're not getting off yet.
No, no. Get out the way.
Sure. The wind's got it, that's why.
Yeah,
Doing your bit to help there, are you?
Just going to retie that one, make it a bit safer so the boat doesn't go walk about. All it takes is one gust of wind and the bum of this thing's going to go out.
Is that over our head?
Yep, too many times. Right, there you are, guys.
Thank you, that was really good.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much.